Did you know when to bath your children?
No. I was in hospital 3 days and he hadn't been bathed. And I got home and my mum was like, are you not going to bath him? I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
Welcome to Just Another Group Chat. We have two lovely guests today. We have the lovely Jessica.
Hi.
We have the lovely Nina.
Hello.
We thought we would just carry on today a little bit from our labour chat because that's went down really, really well. And we're going to talk about newborn baby life. So, yeah, hope you enjoy this. I'll start. I have one child. So I have been through the newborn phase once. Jessica?
I've got 3.
3, okay. Nina?
The grand total of 0.
Okay.
So I've got no idea anything about newborns.
Okay, I think this will be a good mix though, because I guess what we're going to chat about today is mainly what people or stuff people don't tell you about having a newborn baby. Yeah. More than how lovely and wonderful it is. We're going to talk about the things that people don't actually mention. So I think we'll start with the first 24 hours.
Okay.
Because we've done the birth one.
Yeah. So
the first 24 hours, so you've had your baby, you've got this baby, first 24 hours, what happens? What happens that people don't tell you?
It's different for everyone because you'll be in hospital different times. Your experience of the labour part is totally different. Mm-hmm. So each experience will be, well, in my opinion, will be different.
Yeah. I mean, some babies end up in ICU, some babies, there's loads of different kind of scenarios, I think. So start with the newborn bubble, that feeling of love that you get, or some people don't get. I think that's the first thing is to mention that. I've chatted to a few people today in the office about this, and one or two of them said they didn't get that newborn bubble love thing, maybe until the next day, or some people are a week later. Some people it's instantaneously, and it's literally like an instant. Yeah. Wow, this is like the most love I've ever felt for any human in my life, and it's just happened over a second, which is really bizarre, but amazing.
Is there any shock? Just like I know you've got 9 months to prepare, but I feel like the shock of like, oh my God, this is a human, like it is a human.
I think for me it is a shock. It's like, oh wow, they're here.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're here. Like you've waited. Yeah. Like I think for me, especially I'd waited so long to have Addie. I was like, she's here and she's made it and she's here. And because I think up until that moment, there's a part of you that part of me that doesn't quite accept that you're going to get to meet your baby until that moment in time. Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah, like you need the visual of your baby. Like it's different when it's the baby's in your tummy, and
when you see the features and the face and all the little things about them, it's like an instant discovery of, wow, look at her eyes, look at her hair, look at her face, her chin, whatever it might be, all those different things. I
remember like the first, because with Lucas I had the epidural and everything, and I couldn't hold him for a while after, but then on the night was the first time it was just me and Lucas, and I remember sitting being like, I don't know what to do.
Is Lucas your first?
He's me first, and I was sat on the bed and he was asleep next to us in his little bed, and I was like, don't wake up.
Yeah.
I was like, in my head I was thinking I just actually don't know what to do because I'm totally by myself, because I'd had my mum in, I'd had Gary there all the time, and it was in the night, so like everything was quiet, like the nurses weren't there, and I was just like, oh.
I remember looking at Addie and they'd swaddled her to within an inch. Like just like a little caterpillar. They'd swaddled her, which is funny because in the hospital they will swaddle your baby, and then you take them home and they say, don't swaddle them.
I always did with mine.
They're like, don't swaddle them, mind. What? Hang on, you just swaddled her for 24 hours? So anyway, I remember looking at her, and I hadn't slept for I think this was day 5 now, because I had a long, long labour, and it was all a bit, so I think it was day 4. So I hadn't slept for 4 days.
I just don't know how you function.
I was unwell by this point. I'd been in the high dependency unit and stuff, and I wasn't well. But I remember being so in love, I didn't want to fall asleep.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to sleep because I just wanted to stare at her.
So is that true that you do want to, like in films where they're like, oh, you stare at your baby?
I'm not even joking.
Is it like you can't, and what, are you thinking anything, or is it like, one of those moments where your mind's just blank, but you just like looking? Do you know what I mean?
You
Or
just-
are you overthinking things in your head, or do you think
No,
that depends
you're
on the
just
person you are?
genuinely admiring and just literally admiring
Staring
the
at this
view.
little
It's
tiny
like
human.
imagine the most beautiful waterfall you've ever seen. You could stand there for 10 minutes, couldn't you? It's like that. For me, I remember thinking, and I remember saying this out loud, how does any parent watch telly ever again?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the weirdest thing, but that's do you remember feeling like that?
Yeah.
I remember thinking I'll never need to watch television
because you'd
ever
rather
again,
just stare at your child
because I'd
than
rather
do anything
look
else. Yeah.
at my child than watch that screen over there. How boring is that screen compared to this beautiful human?
Yeah.
I totally get what you're saying though, Jessica. Like when everybody's in, like your husband and your mum, and you know it's busy in the nurses, and then all of a sudden you're left alone at nighttime with this tiny baby, and thinking, "Don't wake up," just because you're just in that state of like, "Oh my god, there's this tiny baby that I've got to look after now."
Yeah, because I think as well, like when you've just been through the labour process and everything, everybody's like, "Oh, just you rest and like we'll do all these things," and then when you're left by yourself, like, "Oh." And the first night I was left by myself was Lucas's first poo, and I was not prepared.
Addy pooed 5 times the first night. 5 times the first night, and I was like, what on earth is going on? But I thought she was just feeding well.
So what's to be expected, right? You've just had a baby.
They put you
when
in-
do they poo? What
You don't know?
You don't know.
So can you not leave the
But
hospital until they've had a poo? Is that right? Or is that...
I didn't leave. Everyone's different, but I wasn't well, so they'd kept me in because I wasn't weeing and stuff.
You were
Like,
weeing.
yeah, no, for myself, I'd had a bit of a kidney thing going on and other stuff just from the birth. I was not very well. So they wanted to keep me in for 3 days. But by day 2, I was like, I am going home.
Yeah.
Because it was sweating in the hospital.
Yeah.
It's the middle of
it was
August.
yeah.
And it was boiling through the night. So I remember asking for ice in the middle of the night and just being like, I need to cool down. I'm sweating here. You don't know what to expect. I had no idea what to expect and how much to do because I'd had a section. So I remember pooing, because when they're a newborn like that, you can tell because they just make a face and make a noise. And
it's just like lava.
it's like black tar.
Yeah, like black tar, just doesn't stop.
It's like tar, thick, gooey tar.
Yeah.
See, imagine if nobody told you that. Imagine the sheer panic of going to look at that and being like, oh my God, what is wrong?
Yeah. I mean, she pooed 5 times, and I remember thinking, they've just left us in here, so I must have to just get on with it.
Yeah.
So, but I remember looking at the suitcase, and it was on the floor, and the nappies were on the floor in the suitcase, and I'd had a section.
Oh, to bend down.
What, Mia 8 hours previously or whatever, and I was like, I need to get in the case, get the nappy out. It must have took us a good 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But it was like slowly bending down to get this nappy out. And then she pooed again about 10 minutes later. And I was like, oh my God, no, I've made an error.
You're like, welcome
Why
to
why did I not get more nappies? So then the next time round, I brought them all up on the bed. And I by the end of the morning, there was just clothes, nappies, wipes, all sorts just spread all over the bed. And I was like squished up in the corner.
You're like, welcome to motherhood.
Yeah.
See how you learned in like 2 seconds though to always be prepared.
I didn't press the buzzer.
No, I didn't.
Once.
My story is very similar to yours. I put him on the thing and I knew he'd pooed. I'd started unchanging him.
Yeah.
And then I'd realised that I didn't have any of the stuff, any of the the wipes or anything. Well, let's tell you not to use wipes in the hospital.
Yeah, no, we use
It's
cotton
wool and
wool.
water. So I had none of that. And they were like just in arm's reach, but I had to put my hand like that over the baby, reach over to get the stuff, cleaned him off, and then he'd pooed again. I was like, I haven't got any of the stuff. I've just done the same thing. I did exactly the same as you.
You don't, and then you quickly learn, don't you?
And then that's it. Yeah,
Quickly learn.
I think the babies do it as a little test. A little test to you all. They're like, I'm going to do it again in a minute.
Yeah, I just remember and I didn't press the buzzer. And now looking back, what kind of pride did I have to not just press the buzzer?
I don't think I even thought about it.
It didn't cross my mind.
Nah.
I got up 5 or 6 times after having a section. I'm not even joking. Because they're in the cot and you have to stand up to pick them up out the cot. You can't just lean over, because the bed. It's just not the way the setup is. So you have to stand up to pick them up and then put them back down. I got up so much, up and down and up and down, and I remember thinking, why didn't I just press the buzzer? Just press the buzzer. And so like weeks later, I was looking back thinking, I just didn't cross my mind.
No, it didn't cross mine either.
Didn't it?
No.
Isn't that weird?
And I've only thought that since you've said that.
Isn't it strange?
I never
We did
thought
all
of
of that. When
Yeah.
actually there's a lot of people there to help you the first night so that you can recover.
Yeah.
And then you go home and you think, why didn't I press the buzzer?
I know.
I need a buzzer at home.
Yeah.
Did you read books and stuff about what to expect?
No, not really. I watched One Born Every Minute.
Is that it? Yeah. I didn't watch One Born Every Minute, but I listened to quite a few podcasts and stuff.
So do you go to like somewhere where they show you what, like the basics of like how to train a nappy, how to
I
put
didn't know.
But is that available?
It wasn't for me because I had during COVID. So
I'd done a couple of classes before, but there wasn't one like that for like the aftermath of having a baby. There was one where there was a breastfeeding one where they taught you through about breastfeeding and stuff, and then there was another one where you went into the hospital and you saw where everything was.
Yeah, see, I think that as like a control freak, that is what I would want.
Yeah. I didn't have anything. We didn't. Stephen even wasn't allowed in the scans.
Yeah.
So he wasn't allowed in until I was in labour.
God, that's crazy.
So he was waiting outside in the car or around at home, whatever, and I had to ring him to say, "Yeah, I'm in labour now. You're allowed in the room."
So was it the hospital that did that, Jessica? Like, was it part of the hospital?
It was somebody like the midwife give us information. I can't remember. It
There's
was
a
10 years
group
ago.
that you can go to, but you have to pay for it, and that tells you. And I've forgotten what it's called. But
do you not think we should have something? Do you not think there should be something that's like the base? I'm sure. Was there not something like years and years ago? I mean, I'm talking like I know what I'm talking about and I don't.
There's
like they should.
I mean, I'm talking 10 years ago when I'd done these classes, so I don't know if they're still available. But when we went into the hospital, they showed you sort of forceps, they showed you like the suction thing.
Yeah,
like, they took you down different routes. They showed you a room with the water birth things. Yeah,
I think,
so
I think that's good. Like I think there should be that option.
I never got offered it with my second and
but
third.
they might have changed it now.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Or even just like basic classics on classes like how to bath a baby, how to put a nappy on. Like, I mean, I know you're not daft, like you'll probably know.
No, but there's things about the nappies.
But I think it would make you feel better.
I remember saying to Stephen, he was checking the nappy and he kept opening up and I was like, what are you doing? Checking if she's weighed. I was like, there's a line on the nappy.
Yeah, it changes colour.
How would you know that? How would you know that?
Yeah, this is the thing. And he was like, what? And I was like, it goes blue if she's weighed.
Yeah.
See, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah. It's stuff like you just don't until you're surrounded by other people who will tell you. Yeah. And the thing is, even if you did a class, there's not, it's the very basics. There's not. And I think one of the reasons they don't is because every situation is different. And I think it could stress you out more.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, depending on what type of person you are. Yeah,
because if they say, oh, she will or he will wee 7 times a day, and then they don't, you're like, oh, what's going on? Whatever it might be. What about, so visitors? You had newborn visitors?
Yeah.
How quickly?
So with Lucas, I was in hospital 3 days. So I let people come to the hospital.
On the first day, how old was Lucas?
I had him like at 6 o'clock in the morning. No, it wasn't. Lucas was on a night. I had him just before midnight and I had visitors 9 o'clock the next morning. I didn't do it again.
Choice. Oh, I was going to say.
I didn't do it again. And I don't know whether it was because it was the first grandchild, it was the first great grandchild. Everybody just wanted to come and see.
I was waiting outside.
And I wasn't expecting. I was just like, oh yeah, it's fine, just come in.
I was waiting outside for Kirsty to have both of her too. I was waiting in the hospital. Yeah. I mean, there must have been a few hours old and I was there.
Yeah, everybody just wanted to come and see him straight away. And then I sort of learnt my lesson. So my second day I was like, I'll let you know when I'm feeling all right for you to come over, because even when I look at the pictures I'm like grey.
Yeah, of course.
I'm grey and I'm just sat and I'm like I just need to try and sleep because I hadn't slept very much.
Yeah, of course.
And there was probably around 20 people visitors the first day.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Between family and friends, it was just like people in and out all the time.
See, they've changed since I've had Addie. Apparently, they said they were going to continue changing the protocol of visitors because it's made them realise as ward staff how difficult it can be just during visiting hours. Then not having that, how much more peace everybody gets. And so I think they've changed everything now, so you can't really visit in hospital anymore.
And also when you're saying 20 people there, that's 20 sets of.
And that's only in visiting hours as well.
Like
so there was quite a lot of people in at one point. I remember like sitting thinking, God, there's too many people in this room.
Stephen was kicked out.
Was he?
Yeah, even Stephen was kicked out. So she was 4, I was born, and they said, you have to go home now. Get out. You can't stay because of COVID. Just not allowed in here. So he left, and then I didn't get back. Actually, mine was a bit different because the next day they'd found she had the cleft palate, and then I needed the RVI team came and a few other people, and I rang them and I was like, I need somebody with us, all the rest of it. But then so nobody actually met Adeline until she was however many days old, because I took her home, and even then they said no visitors.
Yeah.
So my mum and Izzy and my gran, I think, came round, the 3 of them and my sister, and they all wore masks and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say, were you conscious about people like washing their hands?
They didn't. Like normally they'd run in the room and come straight to the baby. They all were running in the house, and I was like, you're not coming anywhere near her until you've all washed and scrubbed your hands.
Yeah.
So everybody did that, and they all wore masks when they first met her and stuff, because at the time it was the height of it. So yeah, we didn't get the option of, and I actually felt sad at the time that I couldn't have visitors in hospital, because I didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
So it's like one extreme to the other.
I was like really excited for the first set of visitors. I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. Like, they come to see me baby. And then like the second like visiting, I was like, oh no, I just want to sleep. And then by the end of it, because even in between I wasn't able to sleep.
Yeah.
So I was like up and I was just, I was knackered.
It's mad, isn't it? And in terms of as far as you go, something I didn't expect was, and I was given them and I was thankful for them, the absolute massive sheer size adult full nappies that you get.
For you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I took them in because I bought them in the shop because somebody had told me like you need to take
Somebody told me, and I took them and I wore them for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't expect.
Yeah.
Was to heavily bleed the way I did for about 2 whole weeks.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking massive nappy size
and when
underwear.
And when you bleed, is it like, do you know the difference in it? Like, do you know it's from obviously labour and giving birth and that kind of thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's like bright red blood.
Yeah,
like, like you cut your arm, like it's...
Is that not really scary, looking at that and thinking...
I mean, it's not very pleasant.
No.
Well, I don't mean it's pleasant.
It's not scary, I don't think. I wasn't scared by it or worried, but I just was like, is it supposed to last this long?
Yeah.
Like,
well,
and then
I had stitches, so I wasn't sure if that was part of it.
I had stitches, and I think, and about day 3 or 4, I had what I thought was going to be a hematoma. Like Nina's looking at us like, what?
I'm
like a bleed.
Oh,
Sorry,
right.
like, so where I thought the stitch had come undone inside and bled.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
So I thought I'd had like the stitch anyway, because it was so swollen on one side. And I was like, but I'm bleeding more heavy and I'm this and I'm that. I thought it was all linked, but actually it's not, you're doing anything. It was just swollen. So yeah, I didn't expect that for 2 weeks or so. Did you know when to bath your children?
No. And Lucas I was in hospital 3 days and he hadn't been bathed. And I got home and my mum was like, are you not going to bath him? I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, I don't even know like what I'm meant to put in a bath, because you're not meant to put anything in. It's meant to just be water. You get all like these baby products where it's like washing stuff, and it's not. It's you're meant to just use water for so long after.
Right, and how do you know how hot to have the water? Or is it just common sense? Do you just go,
I feel like it's got to be a little
so
bit
this is the
warm.
thing, right? This is the thing. I didn't know, and I was like, right, I'm going to bath her in the sink, because the bath was so huge. And I was like, I don't know how, we only needed this much water. And so I put her in the sink for our first ever bath.
Oh.
And so I'd used this thermometer that I got at me baby shower, and off my sister. And it just basically tells you, there's a bit, and you put it in the bath.
Oh, okay.
And it tells you, oh, this is the temperature to have. And I was like, yes, thankfully. Put her in that sink bath. She screamed and screamed.
She's probably wondering what's going on.
And screamed. No, because
it was too cold.
Actually, it was too cold.
Was it? Yeah.
So later on, I said, I'm going to try her again. She doesn't like the bath. She doesn't like the bath. And I tried her again, and I felt the water. And I said, she's too cold. So I put a bit more warm water in and it went over in the thermometer.
But to you, that felt warm.
But it felt fine.
Yeah.
So I stuck my elbow in, I stuck the back of my wrist in, and I'm going, no, it's fine. So I put her in and she stopped crying.
So it's just common sense,
I didn't have anything to like do the temperature. I just guessed. But I used to make, because the baby baths are huge and they're quite heavy, especially with water in. I used to make Gary carry the baby bath fill it up in the kitchen sink, carry it into the sitting room in front of the fire, because I used to put him in front of the fire, and he used to do that. Like, I think he probably has done it for a good 3 months while he was a baby. Like, just carried the bath in.
What a guy!
I love that.
That might have been why he wasn't around for the third. Why he started working away, and he was only home for 2 weeks.
Are you supposed to bath them every day?
So this is, again, I didn't with Addie. I think I bathed her once a week, and that sounds really thingy, but you wiping their bum every 20 times a day.
Yeah.
You're literally giving them a mini wash with water and cotton wool 20 times a day.
And they're so small, they don't have like little rolls or anything.
So the thing is, I'd actually read somewhere that you can overbath them because they've got all this lovely stuff on their skin, and that's like kind of keeping them moisturized and things like that. And if you overbath them, that's when they can get cradle cap. I didn't wash our hair for the first week, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like I washed it with water, but not with any soap. I didn't use anything, and she didn't get a bit of cradle cap. She didn't get. I know everyone's different, but
see, in my head, I thought you washed them every day.
I think
Addie gets a bath every day now because she likes the bath.
Yeah, I was going to say,
and they get messy.
It wasn't until I started really enjoying like the baths that then you do it more
until you
often.
give them food. I think that's when you.
It's like twice a day at some points, like when you start giving them the home food.
But while they're having milk till they're about 6 months old, like it's just about I don't know, twice a week maybe. I did.
Yeah, I done like every few days.
Yeah.
It's probably why they smell so lovely. You know, babies smell.
Yeah, they smell like baby.
Yeah.
What do you do with the belly button?
I was terrified. Every time I was changing the nappy that I was going to pull it off.
What on earth do you mean? What do you do with the belly button?
So the cord is still attached to them when they're born.
See, I said this to Dean earlier. It's attached, isn't it?
It's attached, and there's like a clamp on it.
And you've got to wait for that to...
So it just drops off.
And then what do you do?
And it just falls off in their nappy, or falls off when you're changing their nappy.
So you're waiting for that to dry up and fall off?
Yeah.
Do you know the worst thing is I've still got the clamps?
I have. I have as well.
I don't know.
I've got two memory box.
So bad. The clamps are the little wristbands.
I have as well.
The wristbands, I kind of get the clamps.
I've still got it.
I mean, I'd say it's cute, but it's really...
First 24 hours, it's madness. But it's,
how long before that falls off, or is it just...
You don't know. It's different to everyone. But when it fell off, I was like, ah!
Yeah, I think it
fell
was
off.
a while. I think it's like a few weeks, like a couple of months,
like
or something.
10 days at least.
Is it?
Maybe.
I can't remember.
I can't remember. I made that up completely. So after the first 24 hours, you're kind of getting used to things. There's been a lot of surprises that you're not aware of. Then what? After that, first 3 days to a week, then what starts to happen? We know like kind of how to bath them. Cradle cap. Did you know that cradle cap was such a thing?
I'm not really entirely sure what cradle cap is. Is it where they no, go on, you go.
So cradle cap,
in case this is something stupid.
Cradle cap is like oil, dry skin.
On their head, like on their actual...
It's where it's like greasy, flaky crusts.
I know what you mean.
All over their head. It's caused from the oil on the skin. So it's like, it's caused from like oil on the skin just dries up.
Yeah.
And then kind of like crusts.
Do all babies get it? Just some babies?
No, I think it can be hormonal as well. I don't know.
No, not all of them do. One of mine did, the other two didn't.
Addie never had it.
Is it strange when one, like, cause you've got three, when one of them has something as a baby that the others didn't have?
Yeah.
Or you're like, oh, I didn't do this with the other two.
Yeah.
I like the other one.
Yeah.
Did any of them have milk spots?
Yeah.
So that's another thing I wasn't aware of when I first had Addie. I was like, why has she got like little white heads?
Oh yes, yeah.
I was like, the little white like little milk spots they call. But yeah. Which had loads on her nose.
Yeah. I think Kobe had more than the others. I don't think the others really had a lot. But again, like, you forget. So, like, there was 5 years between Lucas and Mason, and I felt like I was doing it all over again. Like, there was loads of stuff that I forgot and that I was starting to panic about and being like, well, I can't remember what I've done for this. Or like when we're talking now, like, you're like, oh, I can't actually remember. Like,
yeah. What about the miraculous kind of, I mean, you see hacks and stuff now on TikTok and whatever, where they're like, did you know that the little caps in the baby grows that at the top of the sleeves are so you can roll the baby grow off this way around?
No.
So that if they poo all over the bottom of the baby grow, you don't have to take it over their head.
So what do you do? Pop their arms out of the little
So you just roll it out and
Oh.
their sleeves come out off. And you just roll it off and down and out.
I wonder if, like, social media has had, I know there's lots of, this is a different topic, but has had any positive impact on people from tips like that? You know, things
I'm sure it has.
that you maybe just don't quite know. Or, like, I've seen videos of how to hold a baby when they need winding and things like that, and how to move them and stuff like that. I wonder if there's been any positiveness from what we all think is negative all the time.
Because when you think of, like, when I done baby massage and stuff when mine were little, but all them stuff will be like on YouTube, or it'll be on social media, or like I've seen like little clips pop up on my feed where it's like, well, if your baby's crying, you can't get them to
like
stop crying,
certain tummy massages and stuff like that. Yeah. Things like colic.
You both went, does that mean you both had?
Addie had colic, really bad. It's basically, did you have colic hour?
It was always worse on a night.
So like between 4 and 6 p.m.
Yeah.
That was Addie's colic hour. What that means, Nina?
I know the word.
Is that she cries hysterically for 2 hours straight.
So why? Because
the nurses say colic.
I took Lucas to the hospital because he cried for 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
And that's what they said, colic and a bit of reflux.
So
Colic.
is that because they've drank
milk? It's wind pains.
Oh, right.
So I don't know if you've ever had horrendous wind pains, but that's what the babies get.
Oh,
so it's really painful,
babies.
and they're screaming, and it's every single night for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I think it was for Addie.
And what do?
You get drops.
You can get colic drops. Oh, right? I forgot. She's only one, and I forgot. She had colic drops with every bit of milk.
Yeah. And they say if you breastfeed, babies generally don't get it, but Lucas was breastfeeding when he got colic.
Did he?
So I had to just put the drops in his mouth before he
That's what
fed.
I did with Addie, yeah. I had Addie once, and she screamed for 7 hours straight. I know.
Oh my God.
Like, I always think that's just made up when people say that.
Honestly,
Nina.
like
when you just said he cried for 4 hours, I'm like,
I took him to the hospital because I didn't know what was the matter with him.
Yeah, no, I knew it was colic because they'd said how many times, and she was pulling the colic face, and she was arching her back, and she was doing all the things that you get to know, oh, that's clearly colic. I'd tried everything, and so she would settle a little bit, but she never actually physically stopped crying for 7 hours. So she didn't have like a 30-second break. She didn't stop crying for 7 hours. It got to about 5 p.m. and she hadn't ate. She hadn't had a bottle. She hadn't pooed. She hadn't weed. She hadn't done anything. And I was like, oh my God, I think I'm going to go insane. And I rang my sister, who lives in my same street, thankfully. And I was like, I need you to come now. And so she walked in the door, and I just handed her, I was at the door, and I handed her over, and I ran into the kitchen because I didn't want Addie to hear us crying. And I was hysterical. Yeah. I mean, hysterical. I couldn't breathe for crying. And I just had this mini breakdown, and then I realised she'd stopped. And I was like, she's stopped. And I came back out, and I was like, oh, she stopped. And honestly, that 10 seconds of silence of her stop crying, I went, oh, I'm fine, I'll have her back. It sounds stupid. That's all I needed.
Yeah.
I just needed, and then I was like, I can do it again now. I felt like I could have gone another 7 hours.
There's only so much
mad, isn't it?
A human brain can take.
Yeah.
I literally was at the end of me, and you realise, I think, because I was stressed, she was stressed, and it just becomes this big thing. I'll never forget that moment.
Because they say like they react from your like stress or your anxiety, or so that's the baby will react off it as well.
It just built it up, and then I was just like a wreck. So she was probably traumatized her.
I phoned my mum loads when I had Kobe, because I had Mason, and Mason was only 14 months, and I had Kobe, and then Gary went back to work and away after 2 weeks, and I remember phoning my mum nearly every day, just crying, saying, "You'll just have to come and help us because I can't even go to the toilet and I'm bursting from away."
Yeah.
And she used to just come over and sit with us for a couple of hours, and I think that's just what I needed, because when he was away because I know like dads generally go back to work after 2 weeks and stuff, but he was away.
He wasn't even coming back on the night time.
No, he was away in America for like 6 weeks after.
Oh my God.
And I remember just sitting and just being like, I can't do anything, because Mason was only 40 months, he was still a baby. And then I had Kobe as well, and it was just like, it was.
Did you notice a massive shift in having two, like having a newborn? I imagine having one newborn, you're like, just the one child, being like, it's the, the one. But then when you've got another one,
I feel like it just sort of like blurred from like having Mason to like falling pregnant with Kobe and having Kobe. Like all that was just like a blur.
Now when you look at it, you're like, don't remember anything.
Because I had just Lucas for 5 years, and it was just like, it was so easy. He was so easy. And then it was just like, I love having them so close together now, like when they're seeing them play and stuff. But when Kobe was a newborn, it was so hard. It was the hardest part I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Because my friend's just had another baby, and she's got about the same, about a 15-month-old, and then she's just had a newborn. And I went to see her, and as soon as I walked in the door, I was just like, whoa, this is like, she's like, I mean, like, she's been a mum for a while. She's been a mum for over a year, but I was looking at her like, whoa, you are a proper, like, mum now. You've got kids. You've got two of them. There's two of them. You multiplied. And, like, she sat on the couch with this tiny baby. But then the other baby's only little. He's only 15 months old.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? He's only little. And
I can't imagine having a newborn with Addie now.
How old's Addie?
18 months.
Yeah, having a newborn now. And I'm looking at her and I'm just thinking, like, and she gave me the newborn, and as soon as she gave me the newborn, her little boy was immediately wanted his mum, because, and she's like, I'm trying very hard to
get the balance
and make sure they spend time together, and they both spend time with me, and it's not just me and the baby, and I just think managing that must be like really tricky.
You never know what they want, do you, at first? I mean, eventually I feel like, I'm not joking, this sounds weird, that after about 2 weeks, you know which cry means
so what. I was just going to say, you learn the cries. So they have different cries,
You can hear them in the other room, and you're like, I used to shout, she's hungry.
Yeah.
She needs her nappy changed, like from the other room or whatever. Like,
I always thought they were
I'm saying I said that like I had loads of help, I didn't. Who was I shouting to? Who am I talking to? No,
and then the one where the hurt is the scariest cry ever.
So
like
I actually, baby blues.
Ugh.
During the baby blues, which we'll talk about in a minute, I, again, hysterically cried because I realised, I was looking at her instead of the telly, because you do all of a sudden, and I realised instantly, and I was like, oh no. And Izzy was there, and Stephen was there, and I was going, oh no, and they were like, what's wrong? And I was like, and started to cry, started to well up. They're like, what's wrong? I was like, she's going to get hurt. And they were like, what do you mean? And I was like, one day she's going to like scrape her knee or something, and she's going to be hurt. And I was like, I can't. Like, I can't physically emotionally deal with the thought of her being hurt. I just couldn't get it in my head. I wanted to put us in a bunker and live there forever. And it was so overwhelming. Like, it's just really hard to explain. But I just remember thinking, the feeling of not being able to, understanding that you can't fully protect them from everything or wrap them in cotton wool, and that you are going to have to go through the pain of watching them be hurt or even scrape their knee.
Yeah.
Oh, horrible. So overwhelming. But that was during the baby blues. So I mean, nothing makes sense during the baby blues.
My baby blues with Lucas, which is the one that stands out. I can't really remember baby blues with the other two, but with Lucas, it was the day I went home from the hospital and I cried and I cried. And I remember sitting in the back of the car crying, and Gary's going, I don't understand what's the matter. I'm like, I just don't want to go home. He says, everybody wants to come home from the hospital. I was like, but I don't. And I remember just getting him out of his car seat and lying him on the floor and just sitting crying and crying and crying. And Gary was like, God, is this really bad that you've came home? And I was like, I think it's that. I don't really know what it is, but I just feel emotional.
Like you cry for about 3 days.
Is it just all the emotions? Do you think it's like what's
it's just
happened
overwhelming?
Over the last couple of days?
It's just sheer overwhelm.
Yeah.
It's what it feels like is pure overwhelming. Like, it's just a lot to deal with. And then
it's like you're processing, aren't you? You're processing what's happened, and it comes out in different ways.
I cried quite a bit, but thankfully Kirsty had told me what was coming. So she was like, you will cry. On Wednesday, you'll cry. And I remember coming round and I was crying, and she was like, the baby blues. And I've never wanted to punch somebody so much in my entire life. Because when you're like, it's not the baby blues. And then you look back and you're like, that was the baby blues. Yeah. It's your hormones drop. So it's actually like a thing, science behind it. Your hormones drop completely. Like there's a big, deep kind of drop in hormones. On that note, one of the girls here was telling us how she'd read that girls, if you have a girl, just talking about things that people don't tell you, they can have a mini period when they're born. Babies.
I didn't know that. Obviously, I've got 3 boys.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't know that. But
what do you mean?
One of the girls here had read that you can see a teeny bit of blood in the nappy, whatever it might be. It's just like a tiny little...
God, aren't women amazing?
Yeah.
And like, even from being a newborn baby.
Yeah.
We're like incredible, aren't we?
It's mad, isn't it? But yeah, that's something that people don't tell you, that you'll get a shock at. And
you would get such a shock, yeah.
Nobody told me how many layers to put on.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
She was cold for about the first week.
This is what I mean.
I'm not joking. You don't realise.
You're meant to put on 2 extra layers to what you wear.
Yeah. But I didn't know that.
I didn't when we first.
I didn't know that. So she cried.
To what you wear.
Yeah.
She cried a lot, and then I realised
it's pretty cold.
I actually was cold. Oh. And I was like, then I wrapped her up one night. She was like, she slept so much better. I probably wrapped her up.
She's warm.
And it's because she was cold. But you don't. I think some babies were boiling. Some babies are not. I remember talking to Jessie at the time, and there's only a few weeks between our babies, and she was like, he sleeps in one vest. And there was Addie with, like, I'm not joking when I say a vest, a pyjamas, a sleep suit, and a grow.
In like the height of summer as well.
Yeah. She was properly wrapped up.
Oh,
she just liked being warm.
She liked being snug.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Every baby's different. I think, like you said, after a week you knew, or after a couple of days you sort of thought, I think she's got, like, you just know, don't you? I think it's that fear of, like, I always think, well, what if I don't know? But it's like, you will know. Like, you'll just know.
You'll get plenty of people telling you loads of different things as well. Make sure you do this, make sure you do that. It's somebody will always tell you something.
Yeah, they'll always be giving you some advice.
Yeah.
So, what about feeding? What does nobody tell you about feeding?
It's hard. Breastfeeding is hard.
Point blank, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Really, I'm not even joking when I say that. Like, I'm deadly serious.
Your faces.
Really,
and you're both like.
And I don't think I ever had like a really positive experience with starting to breastfeed.
I had a horrific experience with breastfeeding. I was desperate to breastfeed, and when Addie was 24 hours old, the cleft palate team came and said, "You can't breastfeed. Just point blank, you cannot breastfeed, and we have to give her a bottle right now." And I was like, no. No, you will not. Like, I've read everything, and everything says I can breastfeed. I hadn't read what to do if I had a baby with a cleft palate. Yeah. But, so I was like, okay. And then it took my entire experience of breastfeeding to a whole new level. They'd said you can still give her breast milk, but you'll have to give her it via this special bottle.
Yeah.
So I had to, and then they brought in a pump. An expressing pump, and I was like, what is this?
The hospital ones are horrible.
It's a hospital pump, and I was like, I haven't done any reading on this or know how to use it or know what to do. And even in that scenario, I asked, when do I pump? And they said, when the baby needs feeding, just pump. And I didn't. I didn't pump enough. So therefore, my milk, my supply was always down, because nobody tells you this. The most important time when you feed to get your milk in is them first 2 days. Feed and feed and feed and feed and feed.
Oh, right.
Just feed the babies just keep feeding for 2 days straight, because that's when your milk goes, this is how much milk I'm going to need.
Right, got you.
Then I spent months trying to trick me supply to getting it up. So for me, what I had to do was express. So every 3 hours, 24 hours a day. And I did that till she was 9 months old. It got to a point where she was sleeping and I had alarms on to get up.
Oh my God.
To express, to pump. And that would take 25 minutes to pump every single time. And then I would go to sleep. She might wake up half an hour later. I'd have to feed her. And my alarm, regardless, my alarm to express would just go off every 3 hours.
I think a lot of people would have given up and just informed me.
Yeah.
So I actually did try and give up when she was 4 months old, because I couldn't physically do it anymore. Yeah. I couldn't do it. And I had her in one arm and then the breast pumps on the other. Like, on the other? They're not arms. I had the breast pumps on my boobs and then her. So I was trying to feed her whilst intertwined with all the breast pumps, because apparently you have to feed at the same time you pump because it helps with the milk supply, all the rest of it. I spent hundreds of pounds on different breast shields, nipple things, because the agony, I had black cracked nipples. They were black, bleeding. And I remember asking the nurse, I was like, I've got blood in this milk bottle because I've pumped and there's blood. She was like, oh yeah, no, you can't use it. And I was like, I was like, but I've pumped 50 mils.
Yeah. Oh.
But now what's going to happen?
I don't think you actually realise the meaning of crying over spilt milk until you've pumped and you've spilt your milk.
Nah.
I swear it is horrendous.
Horrific.
Sorry, I'm not laughing at this. I'm just laughing at the way it's
traumatised.
Milk is traumatised.
It's traumatised us.
It is.
It's horrible. How long did you breastfeed for?
With Lucas, I breastfed for 3 months. He just wasn't putting the weight on, so it was the same with Bobby as well. Actually,
yeah.
Mason only breastfed for about 3 weeks, and he just wasn't interested. I think he was just too hungry, so I just switched to bottles straight away. But you get people around your house all the time as well.
See, I didn't because of COVID. I had the cleft palate team as well, so they were helping us feed her.
So I had the midwives coming round, then I had the breastfeeding people coming round, and then there was somebody else coming round all the time. And I was like, I'm not doing this with my second and third. So I just said that I didn't want the breastfeeding people coming round.
Yeah.
There's such a pressure to do it as well.
It's stupid. Feed your baby.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah,
it's really silly. I didn't. So mine was a slightly odd scenario, because by the time I'd figured out that, so in a nutshell, Addie had cow's milk protein intolerance, so she couldn't have milk, like bottles, so she had to have the dairy-free prescription milk, but she had really bad reflux, and that made her vomit. So we were literally sat, I had like the OT, the nurse, I had 5 or 6 people around mine during the height of COVID trying to figure out how we were going to feed her. It was really tough. Like, they were all a bit like, we might have to admit you in the hospital. We don't know how we're going to feed her. She's physically vomiting all this up. They put me on 2-hourly feeds for 8 weeks, which means I had to feed her every 2 hours, whatever I could feed her, whatever I could get her down at, for 8 weeks. So I was then expressing every 3 hours and feeding every 2 hours for 24 hours of the day for 8 weeks. It was ridiculous.
God, it's crazy.
It's like torture.
But I feel like once you start breastfeeding, you feel like you can't give it up. Like, you feel like you're going to let people, like, there's nobody you're going to let down, but you feel like you're going to be like, let people down by stopping breastfeeding.
It's stupid. The pressure is stupid.
The pressure is horrendous.
It's horrific.
Yeah, because some people just do it naturally and have no problems with it. And it's amazing.
I didn't have enough milk. I had to substitute for other things. I physically didn't have enough milk because of how things started and how everything kicked off. Like, I was always a bottle behind, it seemed.
Yeah.
Like, and then the stress of, right, My child has nothing to eat.
You're stressing about.
I physically can't feed her for the next bottle until I get this milk out my titties. And then it's like, I've got 30 mils. Right, great.
Yeah.
I can't. What's she going to do with that? It's tough, like really,
I was the
really
same,
tough.
especially with Kobe. I used to breastfeed him, and then an hour later I would pump, and then I would feed him again, and then an hour later I would pump, and it was like that all the time. And I don't know why I carried on doing it, because it was so easy with Mason with the bottles.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know why I'm torturing myself with this.
Over something
instead of just,
I would have swapped easy. I would have swapped but it got to a point I did have the pressure. Absolutely. I would have swapped. She physically wouldn't take anything else. We tried it. Yeah. She physically would not take, and she had really bad reflux. God, I'm really having it's like a therapy session, isn't it?
Reflux.
Yeah. And she had really bad reflux to the point I couldn't lie her down flat at all.
Yeah.
So she vomited everything that we gave her if we lay her down. Like, just would all come back up. So not only have you then pumped, expressed, trying to get them in, because you're trying to get their weight up. I mean, I cried every time she was weighed.
I
cried
did,
every time she was weighed. She would put like point something of a pound on, and I would be like, yay.
It's the pressure, isn't it? The pressures that you're under
Yeah.
to, like you said, this child.
They'll weighing it every 3 days.
Well, there.
Every 3 days.
Lucas was the same. Because he was born, he was £9.8 born. It was huge. And then he dropped like within the first week to like £8.
Yeah,
and they were like, that's like a lot.
That's what they did with our day. She was born 7'3" and she dropped down to £6.
Yeah.
It's hard. That's what nobody else tells you. It's normal for them to drop their weight.
Yeah.
It's normal.
It is normal.
It happens, especially if you breastfeed them. Their weight will drop slightly, but the midwife will go through like what's kind of, it's then they'll put regimes and stuff in place. But I always be like, why didn't you tell us how often to feed her? Oh, they don't tell you.
Yeah.
You get like cross information as well. So some people will say, I remember the people in the hospital said, let him sleep. If when he wakes up for food, that's when he's hungry and that's when you feed him. When I got home, the midwife was like, you need to wake him up every 3 hours, wake him up.
That's exactly what happened to me.
How do
she
you
wouldn't,
know?
I let her sleep, and I was like, but she's asleep, and they were like, wake her up. And I was like, to feed her? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, well, now what? Like, it changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you know you don't? You don't. You've got, I mean,
you've just got to make your own decisions.
If we can do it in the height of COVID with the help that we had in the UK, I think we've been quite lucky, because we do have really good postnatal care. I think, I would say. Some people do.
I've never had a baby, so I've got no idea.
I did, is what I'll say, actually. But yeah, there's things like reflux, different bottles, different dummies.
Mason wouldn't have a dummy, and I bought every single kind of dummy you could possibly buy. I spent an absolute fortune. And then at 9 months, he decided he wanted a dummy.
Really? Wow. Yeah, a dummy was a lifesaver for me.
Yeah.
Addie absolutely loves her dummy.
So do they have their dummy because they think they're getting fed?
It's like a comfort.
No, it's just like a comfort. So basically, there's a lot of babies will sit on the boob, like, and just kind of have it as a comfort.
Oh, right.
So, they'll go to sleep with the boob, but they're not actually feeding.
It's just like your clothes and yeah.
Addie loves her dummy. Yeah. We had to take
it's so hard taking it off them.
Well, so again, she had surgery at 10 months old. She didn't have any more bottles, any more milk. She didn't have any more. Everything stopped overnight. So they said, take our dummies, our milk, everything off her. The dummy's another story, but we'll leave that one for another time. In a nutshell, then, there's so many things, I think, to think about, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's so many different routines that people have. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
You will do things like bash their head off the car when you're putting them in and out of the car. At some point, that will happen.
Yeah, it will definitely happen.
You will nick them when you're potentially doing their nails. Putting their nails. Have you done that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It will happen. Like, you will cry. Probably a lot more than the baby will. It's just getting...
Do you know what I always think is crazy is, like, you remember all these things, and yet that baby's not going to remember any of it.
Yeah.
Like it's ingrained in you. All those things are in you, and like you say, like if you've nipped their nails or something, you'll be like, oh my God, and like probably think about it forever. That baby is never going to remember that.
No.
Yeah, no.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like when you go into newborn baby stage, you're like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. That never ends. Like it gets to
doesn't,
toddler stage and you still don't know what you're doing.
You're right.
You get into the next phase and you still don't know what you're doing.
I took Addie to the farm with my mum on Easter Sunday and she started having tantrums.
You're like, what you doing?
I literally looked at her as if she was somebody else's child. And I went, Mum, what? Because I'd said no. I said, no, Addie, you have to wait here. And she went, and kicked off. And I looked at my mum and mum looked at me and I went, Mama, what do I do with this child? What do I do? And she went, I was like, no, I need some advice. What do I do? Because she can't communicate, so she doesn't stop.
Yeah.
Don't know what I'm doing.
That's what I mean.
And every stage is something new.
Yeah.
And every child is different.
And you've got 3.
Yeah.
I think we should revisit this when your children are like 18.
Yeah.
And see what you all think there. And see where you're at and what you think.
I was talking to Helen about this before and she says it doesn't change there either.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
Just different challenges, isn't it? Yeah.
That's what I mean. When you first give birth and you first got this newborn, you're probably just thinking about that moment, but it's like the rest of your life forever.
Yeah.
I think we have to accept that every single one of us is winging it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love that.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Every single one of us is winging it. Be there for each other, support each other through the times where your mates are hysterical or your sister's needing a break from 7 hours crying.
Yeah.
Do not judge. Be supportive.
Yeah.
And don't stress too much.
Yeah. I think
Not every conversation needs advice.
Yes. Yes.
You just need to be listened to
Yeah,
sometimes.
exactly. Yeah.
you don't need to be told what to do all the time. You just need someone to listen to you.
Exactly.
And I think it's helpful when like you both say, or like I've heard girls in here say like they're saying the same thing, just reassurance that someone else is like, that happened to me.
Yeah.
And not here's a lot of advice, just like, I know what you're going through.
Yeah.
And just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're doing mint.
You've got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody listening who's going through the newborn stage, you're rocking it.
Yeah.
Even if you've got no idea what you're doing,
Yeah.
you're doing a marvellous job. Keep it up.
You can do this. You've got this.
You have. And if you need any advice or even just an ear,
We'll listen.
we will listen.
We'll listen
Yeah,
if you need to tell
Indeed.
us.
Amazing. We should have a hotline.
Imagine.
A listening phone.
Probably quite a good idea. Probably never stop ringing.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you both for joining us. This has been interesting.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you
very
for
good.
opening my eyes. That first poo. I will not be like, something's wrong with my baby.
Fabulous. And thank you guys for listening. Give us a little like and subscribe on YouTube, and you'll see us waving where we are if you want to. Just me by myself, apparently. Thanks, guys. We will see you next week on Just Another Great Stuff.